about today?
RAM.
RAM. Does anybody know what RAM stands for?
No.
Ram.
Why don't you read that first line? What does it say?
Random.
Random
Ram.
access memory. That's right. So it's random access memory. So the RAM is basically a fast type of memory. It holds the most important pieces that it's going to reuse the most often. So the system determines which piece of the puzzle that it's going to use most often. It stores it in RAM. So that way it's quicker to access. It doesn't have to go searching to your hard drive to try to find the data. It just pulls it from the memory chip. Boom, pops up and it's ready to go. So it's just a lot quicker storage of your memory. So that way you can access it a lot quicker. Yes, Audrey?
Tonight, squeak ate
Hey,
away the
Audrey.
a spider.
Audrey. Does that pertain to what we're talking about here today? It doesn't. So let's save the questions till after we're done, okay? We'll do all the questions when we're done. So if you have any questions, you let me know. So once again, it's a fast type of memory. It's short-term memory. So what's on the RAM doesn't stay. So if you shut down your computer, the stuff that's stored in RAM goes away. And then it restarts when you boot your computer back up. So it just continues to recycle that memory, and it, like I said, puts in the most important piece of that puzzle, things it thinks it's going to use most often, and it'll trigger that, so that way it can use it a lot quicker. Audrey, we're going to do questions at the end, okay? So we'll keep our hand down. All right, so there's a bunch of different types of memory, a bunch of different types of RAM. So you've got SD-RAM, DDR2, DDR3, DDR4. Obviously, those are going to sound a little bit foreign to you, but those are just different types of memory. As memory gets upgraded, it gets larger, it gets faster. They change the names on it. We'll see once we get in there and we look at the chips, the memory chips, and see what they look like. You know, you'll be able to take a look at it. There's differences between your desktop memory and then your laptop memory. So we'll take a look at the different sizes in those. We'll take a look at all that stuff here. With the random access memory, there's different megahertz, there's different speeds. So that's going to determine how fast you can get access to your data. So, you know, there's some that are a little bit slower, some that are a little bit faster. So it's, you know, depending on how much money you want to spend on it, will determine, you know, how quickly it's able to get that for you. Also, there comes in a large amount of varieties. You can get 1 gigabyte, 16 gigabyte, 32 gigabytes. Depends on how big you want to go. You know, there's different sizes of that, so you can decide how much RAM you want in your machine. Each machine does have a certain set, a maximum amount of RAM that you can put into it. So if the maximum amount of RAM is 32 gigabytes and you try to put 64, it's not going to work. It's only going to give you 32 gig. So you have to make sure if you're ever going to be switching it out on a computer, you check the specifications to make sure you know how fast or how much RAM you can actually put into it. Audrey. So the biggest thing with the RAM is it's going to increase your ability to multitask. So if you're watching a YouTube video on the computer and you're also writing notes and you're listening to music, you're doing all this stuff on the computer at the same time, if you don't have a lot of RAM, it's going to run really slow. Your programs aren't going to load. Okay, you can go, Audrey. Your programs aren't going to load. No, just go. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yep, that's fine. So it's going to take a while for your programs to load. They might stop and start on you. So there's just, the more RAM you have, the faster that stuff's going to work, the better multitasking ability that you're going to have. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll dive in and we'll take a look at the actual RAM. So the first one we'll look at here will be on the desktop. All right, so the RAM in this one is going to see these two sticks right here. That's your stick of memory. So that's your RAM. So in order to take these out, see these two little white clips here?
Yeah.
So you're going to push down on that clip, push down on this clip. I can see it. And boom, it pops right out. So that's your memory. That's your random access memory. That's your RAM. So you want to go ahead and try to take the other one out?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Do I have to put the white stuff down?
Push the white tabs down
Okay.
on the top and the bottom.
I can't see it on the top. I might hurt my finger.
So just put your finger in there nicely. Just look in there. Stick your head down if you need to.
don't get electrocuted.
Well, we don't have it plugged in, so you're not going to get electrocuted. All the power's off. Once again, these units are junk, so I don't have a problem with you touching it without your stuff there.
I want to
Yeah,
wear
this
the
falls
bone.
out.
I do this.
Okay, so the other tab is right there. See where that other tab is? Look in there.
Yeah.
Push that other tab up. Push it down. Push it down. Push it towards the back.
I am.
You take this and you push that back. And then your memory falls out. I just said we would take questions once we're done.
This is my memory.
Alright, well let's not play around with the memory because you want to make sure that you don't ruin those.
Why?
See, because you've got all these little pieces right there, all those little lines. If you start scratching those up or if you start doing stuff to them, then they may not work.
But they're old and they don't.
Well, they do still work. The memory still works. The computers themselves are junk, and I mean, I could reuse these on other machines if I wanted to. So these ones here, if you look at the chip there, it'll tell you things about it. So this is 1 gigabyte. So this is a 1 gigabyte stick of RAM. See where it says 1 GB right there?
Yeah.
Alright, so that means it's a 1 gigabyte stick of RAM. So that's not a lot.
Can I
those
do
are pretty
this?
small. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look. Here, why don't we put those back in? Can you guys try to put those back in for me? So now those go in a specific way when you put those in. Okay?
Put these in
Which
this part in
way?
first.
Yep, those need to go in like that, yep.
So mine was right here.
Yep, so there's different ways that these can go in when you're putting your RAM in.
Oh.
You know, there's
I'm
different
gonna
channel
take
modes.
this
There's dual
off.
channel mode, there's different things. So when you're putting them in, see how they have these color coded?
Yeah.
That means if you're only going to put in 2 chips, you have to make sure you put them in the same color code. If you're going to put in 4 chips, then you can put them in all of them. But if you're going to do just 2, you got to make sure you have them in the same color code. Otherwise, it won't work.
Ow.
The computer's not going to hurt you, so just go ahead and put your hand in there. And just push it in tight.
Okay.
All you have to do is push it in hard. You don't have to snap those, just push it.
Oh.
Push it, no, push the whole thing in. Here, I'll show you. Want me to show you how to do it?
It is.
Did it go all the way in? The clips, no, you just, so you gotta, when you put it in there, push in the middle. And push it in as hard as you can. And it should push down.
I can't push it in as hard as I
But
can.
that's because you're not up there. You're not up at the top. So
I
when
know,
you
I
put this in,
didn't feel it yet.
so put it right here at the bottom. Right?
Yeah.
And then the top goes into its slot. And then push it in as hard as you can. Try it again. Put the bottom slot in first.
Daddy, I can't get this out.
Now push it in as hard as you can. Off the slot here a little bit. Right, move your hand. And make it backwards too. Just gotta push hard. Take a little bit to get in place. Alright, go ahead, Julian. I'll try it. Now make sure you put it in the right way. Then you gotta go in a specific way. Yep, there you go. So slide it into its slot there.
Here?
Yep, go all the way up to the top. Push it all the way up into the slot. Are you going up? Yeah, keep going up. Up higher. Up higher. Up. Raise it up. No, you don't have to slide it like that. You go all the way up to the top.
Aiden's doing.
Right here.
Where'd
See?
it
Right here.
go?
Go ahead. Now slide it into the bottom one. Alright, now push it in as hard as you can. Yeah, push. Right here, the top. Push the top. Right here. Ready? Push. Push down. There, now push the bottom. Top's in. Push the bottom one. There you go. Okay, and slid into place. Got it? In?
Yeah.
Alright, Aiden, head back over here, please. Alright, so then we'll go ahead and we'll take a look.
To do this.
We'll take a look at the laptop one. I'll go ahead and take the
I'll do it.
I'll take the back off for you guys. So once again, the RAM on the laptop, the memory sticks on these ones will be quite a bit smaller.
Oh, I want the old one.
Yeah.
I want two old ones too.
So I think there might only be one in this one. I'm not sure. This is an older
I hope there's 3.
laptop.
I want to do computers.
So what does RAM stand for? Can anybody tell me again what RAM
Yeah,
stands for?
random access memory.
There we go. And what does RAM do? Can anybody tell me what it's for?
No.
It's for the computer to work.
What does it do for the computer? Does it make it work better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we
Does it make your multitasking faster?
Can we take the stickers off?
No, the stickers stay on. That tells us what we're looking at. So this one here in the laptop, these ones you'll want to take out. See these little clips?
Yeah.
So all you do on those ones is just push them off to the side.
Like this.
Yep, just push it off.
Okay, I can do it.
And lift it up. Oh, maybe it's these clips. Sorry, these ones.
Oh. These ones are hard.
No, just push them in. Or push them out, I should say. Here, let me help you. Just go like that.
I thought you said these.
These ones right here. This clip and this clip. Just push them out.
Ow!
See, it pops right out.
She used the screwdriver on my finger.
She did. See, now that's the RAM on that one. So you can see on this one, it's still got all the same little grooves and everything on it, but look at how much smaller it is than it is on the desktop computer.
I want to see the other one.
So that's the memory on this one.
It's blue and green.
Well,
It's
the
a lot
colors,
smaller.
yeah, the colors don't really matter. It's the size.
Oh, this is 2 of these.
Basically, yeah. So this is a DIM 1, and this is a DDR2. So when if you're ever going to be changing out the memory on a computer, you need to make sure you look to see what type of memory it takes. Obviously, laptop going to be different than your desktop. Now, can you put that one back in for me? So you can get that back in? And slide that back in there to the clip. Why don't you move your fingers, please? You want to slide the chip in. So you got to
Wait,
slide
pull
that
these
chip
out
in.
first.
No, just slide the chip in.
I'm trying.
Push the chip in and push it down. There you go.
Daddy, I'm
Mine?
supposed
That's
to
it.
do.
And then
No.
it's clip.
Oh, are these clips in?
So as long as
Daddy,
it clips
I did
into the clips, then you're good to
nothing.
go.
I did nothing, Daddy.
Might not being tight, but here, you want to try putting that in, Audrey? Slide that in. Oh, lift it up a little bit, though. Lift it up. Okay, slide it in. There you go. Alright, Joanna, you want to try? You want to try putting that in? So the easiest way to do it is to put it in like this, into its slot. See how I tightened that up and how I push that in?
Yeah.
Like that. And then just push it straight down.
That might break it.
Nope, that's how they go in. That's the easiest way to put them in. Nope, you gotta go up a little bit into the grooves. There you go. Now push it in tight. There you go. Boom. See how easy that was? And then you just go like this once again.
Daddy,
You wanna
what
take
I
it out?
feel? I
Just clip 'em out.
feel.
Oh.
Pop it out. Super easy to take in and
Should
out.
it stay in now?
Yeah, you can put it back in.
I want.
So most of your desktops and your
I
laptops,
want
replacing
to.
your RAM is going to be pretty easy. Biggest thing with the RAM is looking at the computer specs, looking at the manual and making sure you know exactly what it takes. Because there are different types of memory, so you need to make sure you're getting the right kind. You need to make sure you're not getting too much because your PC may only be able to handle a certain amount. So just got to make sure you're keeping an eye on that stuff.
That was upside down.
All right, so that was pretty easy. All right, so that's RAM.
I
So
just
once again,
colored it.
The RAM is good for what?
I don't know.
It increases your ability to multitask on the computer,
The
speeds up your computer, makes things faster for you, makes things easier, and it stores the most used functions that it thinks it's going to need in RAM, and then allows you to use that, so it makes everything quicker. RAM, once again, it's volatile, so when you shut off the computer, it goes away. When you turn it back on, it comes back. Any questions on RAM?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are both of these ones 1 byte?
1 gigabyte?
Yeah.
That one was actually 2 gigabytes. That one was 1, because there was 2 sticks in that one, they each were 1. So that one had 2 gigabytes worth of RAM, and that one has 2 gigabytes worth of RAM. So they both have the same amount of RAM, but that one had 2 chips, that one had 1 chip. So you can get chips or sticks of RAM that are actually, 32 gigabytes in one stick. You can get ones that are 1 gigabyte in one stick. Just depends on how much money you want to spend on it and how much your computer can handle. All right, any other questions on RAM? No?